What's going on? Hey, question for you. You just getting your feet wet in preparedness and prepping, and you're on the internet looking for blogs or different books to read and research in your ongoing pursuit of information regarding prepping, and you're just getting overwhelmed because there's just so many books to read and so many things. Well, I get it. I've been there and I've dug through lots and lots of different books. So today, I'd like to pull back the curtain on that and give you my 5 types of books to start researching with, and within each category I'd like to give you some very specific recommendations on books that we have read here at Reasonably Prepared, and we can definitely recommend to you. We feel comfortable doing that and know that they're really good resources and good places to start. So let's get into it. All right, welcome back. As always, I'm Joshua, and before we get into this, I wanted to let you in on something. We here at Reasonably Prepared are building an online course, like kind of a Prepper 101, that you can take and purchase to really consolidate all the information, get it into one place to try and help us and serve as much as we can. And we would like your input on what you would like as a beginning prepper in the course. So at the end of this course, our hope is to get you through a 72-hour emergency, and that's going to include things like water and medical and food and many other things, so that at the end of this course, you will be prepared for a 72-hour emergency. So if you would please email us at reasonablyprepared@gmail.com to let us know what it is you would like to see in the course, we can help you out with that. We'll be doing some live events and other things as a precursor to that. But the caveat or the benefit to this is, if you give us if you email us, you will be entered into a drawing, because when we do launch the course, we're going to give away 2 free courses. So you got to email us, get us your idea, and you'll be entered into the drawing for one of 2 free courses when we launch. So once again, that's reasonablyprepared@gmail.com to send us your idea or information that you would love to see in a Prepper 101 course, and to be entered into that drawing. So now, let's get into the 5.5 types of books you can go out and buy and research to get you started in your preparedness journey. Number one is going to be it's actually kind of a 2-parter. It's some type of emergency preparedness and outdoor bushcrafting books. So I'm kind of lumping them into one because many books overlap those 2 things. There are some books that cater specifically to emergency preparedness and specifically to bushcrafting, camping, outdoorsy stuff, but a lot of them overlap. This is going to give you the leg up on general preparedness. It's going to talk you through storms and tornadoes and what to do if you're stuck in the woods and need to learn how to build a fire, or what to carry on your person to be able to do these things. That's going to be an emergency preparedness or bushcrafting resource. And there are some specific books within these brackets that I want to recommend to you that we wholeheartedly endorse, and I've actually purchased many copies and given to people. So in the emergency preparedness category, you're going to have, number 1 is going to be this guy right here. This is the Complete Survival Manual by National Geographic. This book is awesome. It's got like hard plastic waterproof pages, and it covers all manner of emergency preparedness, from survivalists to plane crashes to floods and tornadoes and storms and winter. All of those things are covered in here. Water, food, medical. And there are individual stories in here from people who have actually survived real events. So it's not a doomsday situation. So that's one. Number 2 is going to be this guy here. I love this book. This is the Prepper's Instruction Manual, 50 Steps to Prepare for Any Disaster. This book is awesome. It's literally like 50 different things you can do. You kind of pick and choose what your priorities are to get yourself prepped. And another one here is going to be Prepping 101. Now, you also may notice this little barcode here on a whim for the rest of these here, just to give you the information. I've got books that I own, and I recommend you own the books the ones that I recommend you buy them. But if you're just wanting to get your feet wet and you're just wanting to do a precursor, go to your public library. I went to the public library as kind of a litmus test to see what they had available, and I was astounded that they had an entire preparedness section in there, and I got this. how to stay alive in the woods, worst case scenario, the disaster survival Bible. I was astounded with how many different types of emergency preparedness books, survivalist books, and how many books they had in all of the other categories that I'm going to list today. So make sure you hit up your public library for all of these different categories and go and ask the librarian, hey, I need to, this one, this one, this one, and this one, and where are they? And just kind of dig through and see things that catch your eye. But to get back into it, this book is amazing. Bushcraft Illustrated. There's also Bushcraft 101, and this guy here has written all kinds of different bushcrafting books. So number one is going to be some type of emergency preparedness book and some type of bushcrafting survivalist camping book. That's number one. Number two is going to be some form of emergency medical handbook or emergency medical book. We talk a lot here about, water, food, medical, and the different orders, and medical is so important. And so medical books are awesome thing to have. And a few that I'd like to recommend to you, one of them is another one of those books. We're going to put a picture right here that I have purchased many times and given away. It's called When There Is No Doctor. It's an awesome book. Another one is going to be this one right here. This is just the first aid manual, American College of Emergency Physicians. They carry this at the library. It's on Amazon. You can get it anywhere. This is a great medical resource to have for emergency, all color, good pictures, great book to have. And another one is in line with the basic Bushcraft First Aid Wilderness Handbook. And once again, at the library, I found Outdoor Medical Emergency Handbook, medical herbs. There were all kinds there in an entire section. So it is good to have a basic understanding of, some amount of wilderness or emergency medical, so that when you buy a first aid kit, you have at least some small idea of what to do with it. Okay. And as a little teeny side note, you might even ask your company that you work for, things like that. Maybe they will offer a first aid class. So I know the company I work for recently offered a basic first aid course through the company. So just ask your boss, ask your HR, hey, could we offer that? And it'd be just an extra level of protection. An extra level of preparedness to help in a situation and know what to do. So number two is going to be some form of basic emergency medical book. So my number three book, or category of books, are going to be some type of cooking from scratch books. And, this may sound simple, and to let you know that a lot of these books are going to kind of overlap in their themes, but learning how to cook from scratch, okay, is super important preparedness, and something that in today's day and age where we're busy and on the go, we eat a lot of fast food, or we eat a lot of food right out of the box, or food that is rapidly, easily prepared, learning how to cook things from scratch. And by from scratch, I mean by the raw ingredients, open fire, not from a box mix at all, but from all their individual components, is just super important. Number one, it will save you money, because buying the individual raw ingredients and then making those things is considerably cheaper. In other words, buying a loaf of bread versus baking a loaf of bread, it's so much less expensive to bake a loaf of bread. Number two, it's rewarding to know how to do these things, because in a grid down situation, in an emergency situation, in situations where you can store the raw ingredients, which will store longer, you have the ability to make foods when the shelves are completely cleared off. So learning how to cook from scratch is super important. And these are the kind of the top three books, with some other auxiliary books behind it that I found that are really good. But you can see how well worn and well loved this is. This book's called The Joy of Cooking. My wife and myself, we love this book. This book breaks down not just how to cook from scratch, but what different terminologies are, what to do with the raw ingredients, how to prep them, literally different culinary vocabulary and their definition. It breaks things down into really simple terms. The Joy of Cooking is a book that you're not going to go wrong with. Number two, because the basic of things that you can make are bread. So this one here is called Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast. And it is how to make all kinds of bread in their simplest forms. And just knowing how to bake breads, bread products, crackers, things like that are the simplest, easiest things in a situation where you can't just go out and buy them. You need to make them yourself. And they're so much more delicious than prepackaged. Number 3, I recommend this wholeheartedly, and that's going to be the Barbecue Bible. Some outdoor meat-eating barbecue book, because learning how to cook on open flame with coals or wood or things like that is equally important as learning how to cook in your kitchen. So this book is awesome. Tons of recipes, tons of awesome things, but there were a couple of others that I found that I own. The Great Outdoorsman Cookbook, and then I found these. I was really intrigued by these. And these are the Camp Out Cookbook and the Wilderness Chef. And these are for if you're camping, you're going to go camping, you want to do some glamping, things like that. Some meals with that you can basically simplifying what to cook during camping that's a little bit above just, hot dogs and hamburgers. So these books are really awesome. I can't recommend enough The Joy of Cooking and the Barbecue Bible and Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast. These 3 books here are going to give you a great trifecta and a great foundation for kind of learning how to cook in lots of different types of environments with lots of different types of mediums. Once again, from baking to cooking in open flame, in a grill, or even around a campfire, and how to do that. Some of these breads are literally wood fire type breads that you can cook in a smoker or things like that. So check out The Joy of Cooking, check out Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast, check out the Barbecue Bible. Once again, links in below. Number 3, some form of cooking from scratch books. Number 4. Okay, number 4 is going to be some type of game or wild game food processing books and food preservation books. I'm kind of lumping those in. And they're going to go hand in hand and overlap with your cooking books from before. And this is super important because, number 1, it's important to learn how to hunt. Number 2, it's important to learn where your food comes from. Number 3, it's important to learn how to, preserve your food after you do some growing of food and things like that. And then if you're preserving it well, then you know how to cook with it. And so I want to go over a couple of books that we have used extensively in our food preservation and meat harvesting and meat preservation, whether it be homegrown chickens, homegrown hogs, or if I'm out hunting and harvesting animals, killing animals in that way to bring them home for food. So the number 1 for the butchering is going to be Basic Butchering of Livestock and Game. This book is awesome. It really walks you through on what to do. Lots of good pictures. I referenced this book. I've got this copy. We've actually got more than one. Because sometimes I get kind of grody because I'll use them when I need them. And so the Basic Butchering of Livestock and Game is going to break down how to butcher your home livestock or wild game after you've downed an animal in the field and what to do with it, from field dressing and all of those things. Another good one is going to be, believe it or not, The Meat Eater by Steve Rinella. This is Meat Eater TV show guy, has written a spectacularly good book on how to manage game and then how to cook it. So not only how, once the real work starts when the animal is on the ground. And once again, whether that's home raised or harvested in the wild. And this has great pictures, great resources. He's done a really good job at breaking down what the different muscle groups are and how to preserve them and what they're called, and gives you a good training ground for what, from poultry to elk to cows to rabbits to all manner of animals. These 2 books are going to do a really good job at your wild game processing. And then so's this one here called Odd Bits. Isaiah here at Reasonably Prepared loves this book, and this is kind of how to use the whole animal, how to do everything, sausages and things like that. This is a really good book. And then you want some food preservation books, which are going to be Preserving Food for Dummies. Awesome book. The Backyard Homestead Guide to Raising Livestock, and this is going to be another good one. This one here's a survival handbook, but I'm stuttering over this, for what to do things that are at the supermarket. So if you can buy them from the supermarket and then preserve them. Then there are other books on canning and jarring and dehydrating. All of these were at the library, and I'll put a few more in the links below. But some type of wild game and homegrown livestock processing and food preservation, from meat to vegetables, super important to have. Another thing that these books teach you is the importance of knowing where your food comes from, because we've become so used to a system where everything's just wrapped in pretty cellophane, reading these books gives you a better understanding of where your food comes from, how it got to the supermarket, and gives you a better attachment to what it is you're eating, and which is really important. It's something we've lost in our society. So number 4 is going to be some type of livestock, wild game processing, and food preservation books. We've made it to number 5. Number 5 is going to be some types of homesteading and backyard gardening books. Now, the homesteading are going to overlap with the last one a bit, and then carry it over into gardening. And then from the gardening, you'll need food preservation. And from food preservation, you'll need to know how to cook from scratch. These books all interlace, okay? So it's kind of your prerogative as to how you're going to start, where you're going to start in this journey. But all of them are important. So homesteading and gardening books. And this is what I'm going to recommend because boy howdy have we used these when we used to live on property and even here in the city. Number 1 is going to be the Square Foot Gardening. This book is going to enable you to grow full gardens in 4-foot by 4-foot squares using something called companion gardening. Okay, it's kind of revolutionized gardening, the large scale idea, and simplified it down into an area where you could do this in a suburban home, even in a city lot, whether you live out in the country, and we use this with good success. This was actually recommended to me by my aunt who loves to grow foods. Thank you, Aunt Sue. It is a godsend, and what's great about it is being able to garden in small areas but still have high yield. He says that you can, in a 4-foot by 4-foot box, you can grow enough vegetables and enough gardening stuff to supply a person with 2 full salads every day. And you can do this most of the year, depending on how you do it, if you do greenhouse boxes or things like that. So Square Foot Gardening, great book, great resource. It's going to kind of change your paradigm on how you can garden in your backyard. Another one that's has been, I can't tell you how much we've referenced this in general, and that's going to be Back to Basics. This book is legit. If you can find it. Sometimes it's hard to find. I'm going to try to find the Amazon link. If you can get it at the library, read it. It is a great, great resource for anything from old school wood projects to gardening to raising chickens to raising goats. Has so much good quality, easy to understand information that will get you started in some type of homesteading scenario. Another one is going to be The Backyard Homestead. This is a great book too. You can see there's notes and all kinds of stuff. Teach you how to raise rabbits, teach you how to garden, how to vinegar, how to process foods and vegetables. These overlap with some of them, but The Backyard Homestead is another good one. And I'm bringing these specific ones up because they do a great job for all of us who might live in the city or in a suburban area or aren't super, even if you're, country folk, which is great, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say a lot of country folk kind of already have some basic understanding of how to do this as part of their lifestyle. But for those of us with limited space and limited knowledge, these are great places to start. So The Backyard Homestead, Back to Basics, unbelievable book, and Square Foot Gardening for gardening in smaller areas are going to be hugely valuable to you, and I can't recommend them enough. I would say run out and buy them. But now, on to my 5.5. My little nugget. Okay, so my 0.5 little snippet that I like to give that kind of reinforces what I talk about is some type of outdoor hobby book. Here's one that we recently got called Knots, Knot Tying, and it's become a lot of fun to sit around and tie all kinds of different crazy knots, which are applicable to survival situations and are applicable to emergency situations. Here's some other books that I'd gotten a long time ago called The Forgotten Arts. And these are going to have things like basket weaving and whittling and kind of DIY projects that get you back to, back to basics and back to clock repair, preserving meats in this one, care and splicing of rope, reclaiming a neglected field, cooking on a wood stove, keeping chickens for home use, forgotten arts, candle making, things like that. And these are a lot of fun to do as families, family activities and hobbies Once again, whittling, learning how to make tools and utensils out of wood with a knife. These are all great hobbies to have and that reinforce and help get you more involved in preparedness and self-reliance and not being so dependent on a system that has proved itself in very recent times to be fragile and easily upset. So having these, and if your power is down, then you've got little things that you're still able to do and keep yourself busy and occupied. Card tricks and card games and books on card games and things like that are all great reinforcement books to preparedness that I recommend you go out and research and buy and have and just to do for fun activities with the family that are outside the scope of phones and television and movies and conveniently consumable things. They physically get you engaged in activity, and they're awesome. So that's it. Those are my 5.5 recommendations to you. I hope this information helps. How about you? What are some books that you have read that I might have missed? Please leave those in the comments below for anyone else. This is this is a good resource to help out other people. If you know of great books that I've missed that have helped you out tremendously, I want you to leave those in the comments below. Don't forget to punch that subscribe button and hit the little bell, because when you hit the little bell, you get our notifications when we come out with videos. I want to say thank you to everybody, including all new subscribers. You're all a blessing. I hope this helps. And remember, just because you're prepared does not mean you're preparing. Be blessed.